now it's our turn to, sorry for the words, but put our balls on the table.
Remember, kids, this is not how you play hockey. It's just ugly.
I like it.
Screw you guys. I'm doing this.
You know what? I love ice cream too.
Go back to Canada, Guy Lafleur.
Game on!
Yeah, game on!
Hello and welcome into another edition of the Hockey Show. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Bolding. I'll be joined by JJ Remote. He's in some mysterious cap circumvention circumstances, a la Marian Hossa. JJ?
Yeah, I'm here on assignment in the beautiful city of Littleton, Colorado.
Home to the Edge Ice Arena.
Absolutely, and the beautiful Meadows Golf Course, too, right next to the Edge, one of my favorite golf courses in the city, and the Edge is probably one of my favorite ice rinks in the city. But yeah, here we are, off-season. It's expansion time, Ryan. Are you excited, or are you indifferent? How are you feeling about this expansion draft coming up here?
I'm like the Joker in The Dark Knight, which I'm sure you haven't seen because you don't watch movies, but I love chaos. I love introducing a little chaos to the world, and I love that the NHL is on fire a little bit with this expansion draft. The last one, I think people had some time to prepare for, but between COVID and, the Kraken kind of coming out of nowhere, even though it's been a couple years in the works, I feel like the teams are scrambling right now.
Right. I've heard a lot of people say how Seattle's probably going to not have such a successful draft as Vegas did. But here with, the COVID cap rules being changed and everything like that, I honestly feel like Seattle is probably in a much better position than Vegas ever was. We might see a really great team get drafted by Seattle, especially some of the names you're hearing waving their no moves, some players not being protected. I'm kind of excited about who Seattle's going to claim here.
Yeah, we've just seen a tweet from Pierre LeBrun of The Athletic saying that it looks like they're going to take Chris Driedger from Florida as one of their two goaltenders, which opens up an interesting situation for the rest of the league. If you're knowing that that's a bit of a done deal, do you maybe change your mind on who you're protecting in the goaltender spot?
I was curious about the same thing, right? Because, if you're Seattle and somebody who magically is unprotected is just too good to pass up, you have to take them, right? As long as they're a goalie. Driedger's great, but is he a proven starter yet? We don't really know. He could easily be a great backup for you. So there's still room for Seattle to add a really good starting goaltender if there's one available. And I think there is a very good one available by the name of Ben Bishop.
Yeah, Bishop has agreed to waive his no-move clause. And if I'm Seattle, a Bishop, Driedger 1-2, assuming you're even getting, let's say, 75% of Tampa Bay Lightning Bishop, isn't bad.
Well, he hasn't really played in, 2 seasons now? He's basically just been resting. So either he has an injury that he's never going to come back from, or he should be well rested by now and ready to make a splash again in the NHL like he used to. It'd be terrible for Dallas. They've had to rely on Khudobin this last season. It didn't really get him very far. He did great the year before, so I think they overpaid for him a little bit. But if you're Dallas and Bishop gets taken from you, I think you're in a bit of a tough spot because I think all you have left is Ottinger, and he's unproven as well. So, I think Bishop is a low-hanging fruit for Seattle. I hope they take him because you got to shore up your goaltending spot if you want to have any sort of success in today's NHL, as we saw from the Final Four in the Stanley Cup playoffs, right?
Right, and Seattle has to take 20 players totaling 60 to 100% of the salary cap. So after that, they can take whatever they want, but they have to at least reach 60% of the salary cap. So taking Ben Bishop's almost $5 million cap hit for the next couple of years could work in their favor. But you'd like to see a goaltender you can rely on in net for them.
Yeah, you and I were having this discussion last week, right? Do you think Seattle's going to be getting to the cap floor? Are they going to be scratching and clawing only to hope for the cap floor? Or do you think they're ready to just kind of be in the middle of the cap, not too close to the ceiling, not too close to the floor, and just ready to have a competitive team? I think that's more their goal here than just simply making the cap work right now.
Well, and let's say this. The expansion cap or expansion draft rules are the way they are in order to make teams competitive right out of the gate, right? There have been many expansion franchises across the major sports in North America that have really floundered given the
Columbus
opportunity.
Blue Jackets.
Well, the Blue Jackets, but, in the NBA, early on expansion drafts were kind of rigged against the new team coming in, and it really hurt the organization where they couldn't be a viable contender for many, many years to come. And that's not to the benefit of the league. That's not to the benefit of the franchise. Like, if you're paying all these hundreds of millions of dollars in expansion fees to join the league, you're not doing it to just lose money for the next 10 years. You want to be competitive. So I don't think that they're going to be a team that's reaching for the salary cap floor, but it depends on who's out there. And the way things appear to be shaping up, there's going to be a good amount of talent available.
Yeah, I mean, again, you can't help but circle back to the last expansion draft, seeing as how it was so recent, right? And I remember going into that and thinking, wow, there's a lot of quality available, not top-tier quality, of course, because all the teams are going to be protecting their first and even some of their second liners. But what you can get is a full team of second liners, essentially. And, so the gap between your best player and your worst player, at least forward-wise, is going to be a lot smaller. So, I think it throws a bit of a curveball in how you work your lineup. But I think no matter what happens, you're going to have a good enough lineup to where you can go out there and compete. You can make the playoffs. You can have a couple stars that you can build a franchise around. I say stars in air quotes because they're not going to be superstars. But you remember Vegas really rallied around William Karlsson. He suddenly became a star, right? And you saw a couple other guys who weren't necessarily stars on their old teams suddenly really get embraced by the Vegas crowd, and that's exactly what you can see happen here with Seattle. So there's going to be a good selection of players. I mean, a couple other players we've seen that might be available is Jeff Skinner. I think his contract's a little bit too ridiculous for Seattle to take on, but he's a decent player, a decent option. Heard PK Subban might even be available, left unprotected by New Jersey. And most recently I heard Max Domi, which would be a shocker for me, but if Columbus leaves him unprotected, I think that's a no-brainer for Seattle.
Yeah, and a couple of these instances, or maybe we dangle a mid to high talent guy to protect the rest of our guys, right? But you also have the options for free agents, right? There are a ton of free agents on the market right now, including 2 just released from the Minnesota Wild and Ryan Suter and Zach Parise. But if you go on Cap Friendly and look at their top, however many 293 unrestricted free agents, I mean, you've got Ovechkin up there, you've got Getzlaf, who's a little old, Taylor Hall, Suter, Parise, David Krejci, Tuukka Rask, Paul Stastny, Derek Stepan, Keith Yandel, David Backes, he's retiring, Brendan Saad, Edler, Dubinsky, but that's not even including, 20th on the list is Gabriel Landeskog, a player who I would say is the heart of the Avalanche engine, and he has not signed a deal yet. And we can get into that a little bit later with Adrian Dater coming on in the next segment, but there are some key players available, and if I'm Seattle, I'm definitely ready to talk to Landeskog.
Well, it feels interesting. Maybe it's more so just being in Colorado and seeing what's happened with the Avalanche players. I'm not necessarily hearing it as much around the league, but it's there. It feels like a lot more players this year have stepped more towards the greed mindset more than the let's stay with the team and continue to build what we're building here. I mean, I'm not throwing shots at Landeskog at all, but you're kind of seeing that elsewhere too. It seems like more so than ever the players are more focused on the dollar amount than anything else.
When you look at Landeskog's last contract, he was earning $5.5 million on a $5.5 million cap hit as well. I think he's deserving of a raise above that. I'm not saying he should be paid $10 million a year, but I think he is deserving of more of that. And I've said it before, if only for how he handled with grace the 2016-17 atrocity of a season. So I think he's worth more money, but it's like our old friend Ryan Riley said, I have a limited window of making money, so I want to make the most of it while I can. And, I mean, he's got a Stanley Cup and a Conn Smythe to his name now.
I know we're up against the clock kind of here, and we've got a guest coming up next, Adrian Dater, to kind of dive more into the Avalanche situation. But looking at that Graves trade, it kind of feels to me it was almost unnecessary, but necessary in the fact that they're opening up some cap space, right? That's just about $4 million with Graves, and if/when Seattle takes Jonas Donskoi, that's another $4 million. And I heard that Landeskog would be happy with an $8 million offer. There's $8 million freed up right there. So, again, we'll get into that a little bit more, but I think that that's my sneaking suspicion of the real motive behind that Ryan Graves move.
Well, it helps to have Graves $3 million off of the books, right? But it also, gives New Jersey an opportunity to then expose him. You don't necessarily want to lose, a prospect and a pick for a guy that you're going to lose for free, right? But then it may save them from having to expose somebody else. But like you said, PK Subban and his $9 million cap hit could be available. So that's an interesting situation for New Jersey. And we'll have the lists are due by the end of this radio show. So we only have a little bit of time left, and then we'll probably start to see some stuff leak out. As a good friend of mine who was involved with the Vegas expansion draft said, even though the draft is next week on television, the transactions officially occur before that. So we may, depending on the tight-lipped security of the situation, hear a leak or two before the reveal on television.
I got to think behind closed doors, Seattle probably has, half of their team built at least already, right? Just kind of talking to people, getting a feel for who you think is going to be protected and not protected. You got to think that they've got a lot of progress already made on this. I mean, they've only had 2 years to think about it.
When you have, 2 years to think about it, 2 years to watch players in the league develop, rise and fall, you got 2 years to plan. They're in a position where they're not competing and having to worry about the flat salary cap that COVID kind of presented. So you've got this opportunity as Seattle to go through and monitor what's going on. Some teams don't even have enough players currently to expose. So they've got to make moves just to have players exposable. So we're looking at a unique situation, and Seattle really gets the benefit of it. And it's, a lot of people were saying they're not going to be as competitive as Vegas. Vegas was kind of a once-in-a-lifetime expansion draft. But, here's Seattle ready to pick off free agents. You've got the whole league in turmoil trying to scramble to accommodate
NHL
you.
fan bases with their hair on fire running around, right? They're
I love it.
freaking out.
So here we are. We're going to go into the break. We're going to come out of it. We're going to talk all things Avalanche with Adrian Dater of Colorado Hockey Now. We're going to talk expansion draft. We're going to talk the Graves trade. We're going to talk Erik Johnson. We're even going to talk Ryan Suter. Gross.
Right now it's 16 minutes past the big hour. Is that right now? Great, good stuff. I think people are getting really cranked.
Welcome back to the Hockey Show here on Mile High Sports Radio. If you have something to say, if you have a bone to pick, if you have an opinion that you think deserves to be on the Hockey Show, give us a call, give us a text, 303-831-1340, or tweet us. Tweet me at rbolding. Tweet JJ at JJ of the Year. And we're here, and we've got a special guest joining us. We've got Adrian Dater for Colorado Hockey Now. Adrian, how are you doing?
Guys, that was a hell of an intro there. Thank you. Always great to come on the song stylings of Kiss. The always great Strutter, I believe. So thanks for having me. Yeah, good to be with you guys.
We always love to roll out the red carpet for our guests, Adrian, and we're glad to have you. Being the Avalanche expert that you are, we don't even want to talk expansion draft just yet. I've got to get into just immediately, what is this situation with Gabriel Landeskog? Why is it unfolding the way it's unfolding? What's taking so long? Give us the deets.
I mean, I'll try to do the best I can. They're not in agreement, obviously. There are. I have been told by sources that, they're kind of far apart right now. I remain an optimist, though, that he'll sign. I really think that the Avs want to get this Cale Makar signing done first and get that number out of the way, and then maybe make a real full-court press to get Landy signed again. That's my take. I know Landy said the other day, Peter Baugh, I believe, The Athletic, had a nice quote. Wish I'd had it, but I didn't. And he said he's disappointed right now. So, assuming that was a valid quote and everything, that's serious to everybody, I bet. And I guarantee you, I'm sure the Avs didn't love seeing that. And whether that could affect things moving forward, I don't know. Sometimes the Avs can be take things pretty personally about that kind of stuff. So, I hope it gets resolved. But, we can talk about this. Is Landy worth a long-term investment? I mean, I do think there's a portion of people out there that think maybe not. And I just think if they don't sign Landeskog, it'll be a surprise. But if they don't, I think they've got to have some kind of really quick backup plan that's going to change change the subject real quick. A big acquisition, something like that, and they can try and spin it some other ways. Well, Gabe and I, Gabe, we felt we made the fairest offer we could to Gabe. He chose to go elsewhere, and that's his right. But now we're looking forward to the future with the guys we have, and now it gives opportunities to younger guys that we've been meaning to bring in the organization, and it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks, right, guys?
Most 100%.
I know exactly what is going to happen, but I don't. Nobody does that, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's throwing people off the most is, it's kind of understood by the public that Landeskog and the Avalanche have an amazing relationship. So, I mean, that being said, are you surprised by A, the posturing that you're kind of seeing from Colorado and maybe a little bit of disrespect to their captain, and B, how far apart they are on this dollar amount allegedly?
First of all, nothing surprises me when it comes to contract stuff. There's always a bit of a, these guys could be posturing for sure. I mean, the Avalanche, I've had agents tell me before that we're way far apart. And the next, a couple days later, there's a contract. I mean, that happened with Mikko Rantanen a couple years ago. I mean, I was on the phone every day with his agent, and he was really upset at some of the numbers. But all of a sudden, I think the Avs came up $500,000 or so, and they signed him for $9.25. He thought they were way far apart over $500,000, which I suppose can be construed as far apart. By some people like that. I think the general fan would go, come on, just bridge the difference and get it done. The only difference then, though, was that Rantanen was an RFA. He wasn't going to go anywhere, and the Avs obviously had to have him if they want to be a good team. This is different. Landy is UFA. And, if he wants 8 years, let's say at $8.8 million, then that's a big pill to swallow, I think, for the Avs. I mean, you're talking about Gabe Landeskog being 36 years old at the end of that contract. We've just seen some teams be really – I mean, there's always teams that really regret these long-term deals, right? They're buyouts.
Look at Erik Johnson right now, right?
Look at – I mean, and I don't think that's because of performance. It's been injuries. But, yeah, look at Zach Parise and Ryan Suter.
Mm-hmm.
Look at a lot of guys have been bought out. I mean, it's always easy and tempting to say, ha-ha, 8 years, we got our man locked up. What happens in 3 or 4 years if Landy just, doesn't have any speed anymore and he's, not a great player, and you got 4 more years on the hook? Do you think Nashville Predators are loving the Matt Duchene deal they signed with him? 8 years at $8 million, $64 million? I mean, do you think David Poyle loves that deal right now?
I think there's 2 things to consider here, too, though, Adrian. One, I think Landeskog is deserving of a raise for past performance. And I've mentioned this a couple times, particularly for the way that he humbly embraced being the face of the organization in the 2016-17 season, which was so bad, and he stood up and was accountable. But I also think, that this team is as competitive as they've been in years, and losing him is losing a big part of that, so maybe you do the Chicago thing, you sign him to a contract he'll never see the end of, and you figure it out, you kick that can down the road, as they say, and you kind of figure it out. And if we pivot a little bit to, like you said, with Makar, I think now that Miro Heiskanen has signed an 8-year, $8.45 million average deal, that gives some framework to a potential Makar contract. But the Heiskanen contract, too, is really favorable for Dallas, where it starts low, it gets high in the middle, and then it ends low right before he would sign another deal.
Right. No, I agree, first of all, on Landy, though. I mean, I agree with you. I don't want to see – I think it would be a mistake to let Landeskog go for nothing. I mean, I think that's a big loss, right? He's a power forward who scored 20 or more goals in 8 of his first 10 seasons. Yes, he's had some bad games at times. I mean, that turnover in Game 5 that cost that game was a critical mistake. He's put up playoff numbers, points. I think there's been times though in the playoffs where I thought he's been a little too invisible. I mean, just offensively. I mean, look at he got dumped off the top line in most of those last 2 games, right? Why was that? Well, I mean, okay, it was to balance out the other lines maybe, and I know Kadri was out, but that's just something, I'm just spitballing here as to what the Avs are probably talking about internally. I mean, is this guy really, really worth this long-term investment, or do we let his money go and we try to, we sign a Seth Jones, we trade, we trade. Well, they're going to have to trade for him, but do we sign another free agent that's kind of out there? Can we give it to Brandon Saad and call him the new second-line left wing for sure, and just place all our faith in Burakovsky being the top left wing now and go with that? Those top 2 lines that are still pretty good. These are just hard decisions. If Landeskog, I think the fair deal for Landeskog would be, and I agree with you, I think he deserves a raise from what he's made, based on not just past performance, but his performance last season. It was good numbers, 54 points in 52 games, or 52. Maybe 52 points in 54 games, one of those 2. Good production, right? Good defensive player. Yes, he's a good guy, a great, stand-up guy. There's nothing you want to see that go, right? But hey, he's 28. He's gonna be 29 in November. There's other factors here. If he wants something like $9 million a year, I think, I think that's too high. I think the fair deal for him would be like 7 years, $7 million each. Kind of the same contract Anders Lee got with the Islanders. Team captain, pretty similar player in some ways. To me, that feels fair for Landy. But they may say, hey, 8 is the floor. Matt Duchene got 8. You're paying Mikko 9.25. Gabe is our team captain, and you want to pay him $2.25 million less. I mean, that's why these things get ugly, and very often ends up the way it is. I mean, players always talk about, I love the team, I want to stay. In the end, it's like H.L. Mencken said, it always comes down to the money. It comes down to the respect that they feel like they deserve, and a lot of that times that comes down to money and term, and here we are.
I'm with you on the term, though. It's a little bit scary to give Landeskog that much term because, playing till he's 36, the style of hockey he plays, who knows if his body's going to be able to hold up, right? I'm 100% with you there.
Yeah, I mean, he's
and then looking a little bit at EJ.
Oh,
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say Landy has never been the speedster of the league, and I think he looked a little. I think this time he looked a little not slow, but it's slowing down a little. And I think that's something you have to think about.
Right, absolutely. And then kind of like I brought up earlier with EJ, I want to know if you had any insight into him waiving the no-move clause. Yeah, I thought it would be a little bit more of a struggle. It didn't sound like there was much pushback on EJ's part. Do you know kind of what went into him waiving that?
No, I think I've known this a while. I think I wrote something a month ago saying, look, it's expected that he'll waive the no-move. I had that in one of my stories, and that's after talking with some people. Until it was actually done, though. I mean, you had to wait for it to actually happen. But no, I'm not surprised. I think he doesn't think he's going to get taken by the Kraken. If he does wait, if he didn't waive it, he knows he's going to put up with a lot of heat probably, and from fans and the team, and they're not going to like that. And I think he doesn't want that in his life. I think he wants to hopefully come back next year and play for the Avs at $6 million and prove that he's a good player again. The health is just always the question, obviously, but I did see Erik after the late in the season in the playoffs, and talked with him, and he said he's feeling really good. He was out there on the ice every day at practice, and as far as I know, systems look good for him to hopefully be back on the ice in training camp. Is his contract a little bit of a too much? Probably. Yeah, it probably is based on the performance, but what are you going to do? It was signed and it's valid, and they could still buy him out, too. I don't know for sure that they won't. I don't think they will, but they still have that option, and I think it's something they still may be thinking about. I mean, what if they don't? What if Seattle doesn't? I mean, if Seattle doesn't take him, that means that Erik Johnson is still on their roster, and but they do have that option to buy him out. It would be only a $2 million cap hit for the next 4 years instead of 6 this year. That frees up a lot more money for Landeskog, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. But also, we've seen reports here that the Avalanche are potentially interested in Ryan Suter, and I have to say to that, why? If Erik Johnson is coming back to play next year, they're an equivalent to me in my eyes. Maybe Suter has a little bit more potential because he hasn't been as injured as Erik Johnson, but basically you're looking at 2 older, aging out, stay-at-home defensive types.
Right, but you just lost Ryan Graves too, right? So now there's another opening on the blue line. I mean, it should go to Bo Byram, right? It should go to Timmins. But what if they say, well, Ryan Graves' minutes, we don't know exactly about EJ yet, and everything. We're going to get more insurance with a veteran guy like Ryan Suter, who we know is going to play 20 minutes a night and probably play pretty effective hockey. Not a. He's never been an offensive superstar. I mean, he's been a power play quarterback, how he's gotten most of his points in his career. He never scores a goal otherwise, even strength. But he's still a good man in your own zone. I mean, I think the analytics all show that. He played on a pretty good team, records-wise, this year. Now he's got something to prove, too. I always think the intangibles are important in anything, and I think now he's feeling really slighted by the Wild. Everybody, he wants to go prove them wrong, and he's going to maybe go out and have a great year for whoever gets them, and maybe the Colorado Avalanche are that team.
It's just strange to me, keep Ian Cole then. Have a younger, somewhat as capable player in that role. But, if you're looking at going back to a couple years ago on the Avalanche blue line when you have 2 stay-at-home, defensive power play quarterback type guys that all they do is play defense and pass on the power play.
Yeah, but that also Suter could be a good guy on a power play if Makar gets hurt, or maybe even the second guy if they want to say, Sam Girard, you're not our guy anymore for that. He's going to put up 30 to 40 points probably still. Not nothing to sneeze at. He gets a lot of assists. He knows what to do with the puck. He doesn't score much, like I said. But, the reason why I got rid of Ian Cole, and you guys know this probably, is that, they at that time they thought Bo Byram was going to come right in and be the guy, and he probably would have been maybe, but he got hurt. So the Cole deal didn't look as good in hindsight, but they at the time thought we're going to get rid of Cole and his salary and his age, his cap hit, and we're going to go with Bo. Problem is Bo Byram got hurt and never played much of the rest of the season. That's the problem. So you got to assume that he's back healthy too, though, and you got the number 4 overall pick here you're talking about. He should be a guy that does get that role that Ryan Graves just took. But what if EJ's not quite ready and they don't want him much either? What if they buy him out too? Then Ryan Suter looks even more charged. Listen, I'm on your same page here. I don't think signing 36-year-old guys is really the thing I like as a team anymore, especially with this team. I think it should be still young and fast. But, that's just, when you're thinking about maybe 1 year or something, he's not the worst guy to think about.
Right, and like you're saying, there's still injury problems that might come back to fruition, right? You still have Erik Johnson, you still have Bo Byram, and Connor Timmins seems to be made of glass at times. So
Cale Makar missed 20 games last year?
Yeah, there you go. Mm-hmm.
So, he's shown some injury history already. Absolutely. So, you got to, and teams are always going to try and hit him too, right? So
100%.
I mean, we believe he probably had a concussion, something like that. Probably had a shoulder injury once. Remember, Marchand hit him and he missed a bunch of time a couple years ago. So yeah, I mean, injuries suck, but that's so you got to try to game plan a little bit for him. But hopefully he's never hurt again, because watching Cale Makar is just such a treat, right? So yeah, let's not even.
Yeah, and if you're going to be paying him $9 million, you're going to want him to be out there. So before we let you go here, Adrian, I guess let's whip out the crystal ball. And are you on the Seattle takes Donskoy train, or what are you predicting for the for Seattle to take here from Colorado?
Oh, tough one here. I think they take Comfer over Donskoy, to be honest with you. I think he would make more sense. A younger guy. But young doesn't always mean that's better, right? I mean, are we all big JT Comfer fans for what he did in the playoffs? I know I'm not.
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
I don't think he filled in very well at all for Nazem Kadri when he went down, and I think that's a big reason why they lost. Of course, Kadri going out with what he did created the whole problem. Put Comfer in a different role, and I understand that's tough, but I don't think he rose to that level to never warrant faith in him as a top 6 guy right now. Maybe never. He just never put. So anyway, I think he looks attractive on paper still to some people maybe. I love Donskoy as a player myself. A lot of people sort of get down on him at times, but I think he's a really good player. Two-way guy too, and he might be a better player actually to take for Seattle. The other. I guess, I thought they were going to take Graves all along, so that's been eliminated, obviously.
I imagine that's why the trade happened, is that they said, we will take him.
For sure. That's exactly why it happened. At least Joe got something for him. And if they do lose Donskoy, then, I think they've thought that all along that could happen. But then you got Newhook and, maybe Shane Bowers is ready. And, they're probably going to sign another free agent somewhere. I mean, they're going to lose Belmar, so now they need a 4th-line center. So, I think it's either going to be Donskoy or Comfer, and I probably would lean toward the track and taking Comfer, I would think, but I'm usually wrong on stuff like that, so don't listen to me.
Let me throw a curveball in here. If you're Seattle and you're looking at a highly competitive team like the Avalanche, who are trying to shed some salary to potentially sign their captain and drive the dump trucks full of money to Cale Makar's house, do you consider taking somebody who's making less money just so the Avalanche are saddled with a Donskoy's almost $4 million contract, a Comfer's $3.5 million contract, potentially Brandon Saad at $5 million? Do you leave the Avalanche to wallow in that contract mire?
I doubt it. I don't think so. I think Seattle will have a lot more things on their mind than trying to screw over the Colorado Avalanche. I mean, I don't think there's any bad blood between them in the history. Ryan Francis doesn't seem like a guy who would hate on the Avs. I don't see why he would. Their coach Hackstall, and I don't think he's got any history with the Avs. So to answer the question, no. I mean, that would be kind of stupid. If that's the case too, and the Avs felt that way, and it gets out that that's exactly what they're trying to do, then okay, now you've got the Avalanche for an enemy, and they'll do something back to you at some point. So usually teams don't want to do that. There's been very few instances, I think, of teams really trying to screw teams over financially. Although it has happened with the Avalanche. Joe Sakic himself was given an offer sheet back in 1997 that almost derailed his team financially.
Shea Weber was offer sheeted.
Shea Weber was the other, but also Dustin Penner from Anaheim to Edmonton. That got very personal with Brian Burke and Kevin Lowe. In fact, they were going to have a real honest to God fist fight over it, like a duel.
This is why hockey's the greatest sport.
Yeah, and Brian Burke was totally dead serious about it too. It turned out to be an awful signing for the Oilers, by the way. I don't think they want to do that at all because they know it's going to come back at them at some point. Hockey's a small world. On the ice is one thing when you try to beat a team to death, but financially in the front office, I mean, what comes around goes around. You know, they may be looking for a job at some point, Francis or somebody, and they know they'll burn a bridge forever with the Avs if that happens. So usually I don't see that happening, no.
Well, thank you, Adrian, for coming on, sharing your Saturday afternoon with us. This was an excellent talk about the state of the Avs, the potentials of the summer, and the expansion draft. Always a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you.
Anytime, guys. You guys do a really good job on the show, and it's a fun listen, so happy to be on.
Thank you. That was Adrian Dater of Colorado Hockey Now. You can find his work there. I believe he's running a deal right now on his website, so you can get in before the expansion draft, before the trades, before the chaos, before Seattle introduces a little chaos into the NHL. But this is the Hockey Show with JJ and Ryan. We'll be back after the break.
Always a fun listen.
And we're back on the Hockey Show. We've got 17 minutes before the expansion draft protected list deadline. Things are starting to heat up out there in NHL land. Looks like the Sharks are trying to sign a goal. A goal. They need many goals. They need to sign goals if they're going to have any hope this season. I think some moves are being made, and that's the beauty of being on live right now. We won't have the lists for you, but we'll have all the transactions building up to it.
Well, first off, R.I.P. to Bismarcky. Well played there, Danny. Thanks for throwing that one out there. I can't believe
it was
he died.
Requested by Ryan.
Oh, well, good job,
He doesn't
Ryan.
get all the credit, but he gets all the credit for Kiss for Adrian, so...
Well, nice work there. Sad news. I mean, he's not even 60 years old, and he already passed away. So that's terrible to hear. But, yeah, a lot going on in the NHL this week. I mean, I think there was expected to be a little bit more chaos and a little bit more stuff happening, a little bit more movement, a lot more Ryan Graves-esque trades. But we've still seen some things of note. You know, it's been a little bit anticlimactic. But, I mean, I wanted to start with Pekka Rinne retiring. I wouldn't say it was exactly blindsided, but I did think he still had maybe another year or two left in him. But Pekka Rinne is one of my favorite goaltenders of all time. I think he joined the league in 06-07, and at the time he was kind of one of the first tall goalies to really come out and gain some respect, right? Ben Bishop still hadn't really made his mark in the NHL. And
I'd like to present to the court Roberto Luongo, but carry on.
How tall is he, though? He's nowhere near Pekka Rinne's height. I mean, Pekka Rinne is one of those 6'6" guys, 6'7". You know, he's huge. And, yeah, for a long time just seemed to be just one of the best goalies, both combined with size, agility, and style. I mean, he was always in position. I loved him. And, of course, one of the most recent goalies to score a goal. How can you not love that, right? And I always loved his style. His pads and his setups were always on point.
I was always jealous, and I still am, of the way that Nashville produces goaltenders. You know, he's losing his job to UC Saros, which is inevitable in sports.
Yeah, that's like 4 years in the making.
But, yeah, like you said, it looked like he could still play. But, yeah, he was a guy that was a constant frustration for the Colorado Avalanche and Avalanche fans for his entire tenure in the NHL.
Absolutely.
Luongo's 6'3", by the way, so he's close.
Not that tall.
It's close.
Close.
But yeah, it's a strange day. That's a poor one out for the goalie. But he's not the only one that's retired this season. We've got Kevin Miller from the Bruins, 33 years old. Done.
33 years old, Ryan, and this is why I wanted to talk about this. Just on Thursday, I celebrated my 33rd birthday, and I am nowhere near feeling like I'm the age of an NHL retiree, right? I mean, you think of Jerome McGinley, you think of Chris Chelios, you think of Patrick Marleau, so to be retiring at 33, you know, I hope everything's okay with Kevin Miller physically and mentally. I hope that wasn't the reason he's retiring, and hopefully he just kind of was over the game and decided he couldn't do anymore. But 33 years old seems so young to be calling it quits on a career by your decision.
Well, and sometimes, you know, you look at the end of Iginla's career, it was the twilight of his career here in Colorado. You know, he went from Boston to Pittsburgh to Colorado to L.A., you know, holding on to that dream, but you're starting to slow down. Your body's starting to break down differently. You don't recover maybe, you know. It's hard to say why some guys can keep playing and others can't. I mean, look at Yager. The dude was doing workouts at midnight on private ice with weight vests. He's an animal. keeps
right,
playing.
and that's another thing. I mean, if you're an NHLer, right, and now you suddenly feel like, wow, I can't keep up in this league anymore, isn't your first inclination to say, I'm going to go give it a shot in Europe, or I'm going to go give it a shot in the KHL, rather than just saying, you know what, I'm done. And so, I don't know. A part of me is a little bit worried for him. I just think 33 years old is too young to just say, nope, I'm completely done with this game. So, I don't know. I just thought it was worth talking about because I still feel young.
Well, it's hard, too. I think, the NHL is the best hockey league in the world, so anywhere else you go from there is a downgrade. Are you willing to relocate your whole life to Russia or, the Sweden or Finland or live that life in the AHL? Like, some guys aren't really willing to do it.
All right, and that brings us to our next conversation, and that's Duncan Keith getting traded to Edmonton. And the main reason he wanted to do this trade was because he said he'd seen his son one time in the last 5 months because his son lives in British Columbia. Of course, Keith living in Chicago at the time. So my question here is, why do some players decide to live and arrange their families like that, leave their families in their hometown like British Columbia while they go out and play in the NHL and go around and essentially are living by themselves in their home city?
It's always crazy to me. I think of it similarly to flight attendants. You'll have like a flight attendant that lives in Denver but works in Dallas, and so their commute to work is literally flying to another city and then working. Like, it's always mind-blowing to me how that happens. And you see that a lot, especially with international NHL players, younger NHL players. Like, it's surprising to me that Keith's family wasn't just a Chicago family, given how long he's been there and the run he had with the Blackhawks. But, guys like Landeskog go back to Sweden. His wife's from Toronto. They go back to Toronto, or Rantanen goes back to Finland. Like, it's not uncommon for players to have their home and their work home. But then you see, guys who Peyton Manning moves to Denver, plays for the Broncos, still lives in Denver. You see a lot of that. Jan Heda moved here with the Avs when he got traded, and he stayed here.
I guess that says a lot about Chicago then, right? As a city.
Yeah, maybe it does. I don't know. British Columbia is pretty nice too, though. But yeah, it's an interesting move, I would say, because word on the street was that teams looking to sign Seth Jones might be able to make a play for Seth Jones by acquiring his brother Caleb, which is exactly what the Chicago Blackhawks did. Now, do I think that it would be a strange move for them to try and trade and sign Seth Jones? I do, but it's a move that could work well for Chicago in the long run.
Right. I mean, they just lost one of their best defensemen, and he's been a pivotal part of their defensive group for a long time now. So why not throw somebody who could step right in and fill a void and maybe even be a little bit better?
Yep, exactly. And then we've got buyouts that have already happened. So we mentioned before, Ryan Suter and Zach Parise were bought out. This was a long time coming as soon as they signed that contract way back in who knows when, 1995. You saw it coming, and the day is finally here. I know Parise was demoted. He played on the fourth line a little bit. He came into the playoffs for Minnesota and scored an important goal in that Vegas series. He could still play. Suter, I was surprised to see that they bought him out. Like, you have better options. I don't know their system as much as somebody up there might, but that was a surprising move to me. But, these two guys are now on the market and making a ton of money on the buyouts. Could sign cheap contracts.
I'm more curious how much the Kirill Kaprizov contract has to do with these two buyouts, right? I mean, we heard how he was kind of causing fits about the deal he was getting offered, and he was threatening to go back to the KHL. I think if you're Minnesota, you obviously value him over either of these two guys, so I think you got to build towards the future and pay Kaprizov, even if it, you got to crack some eggs to make this omelet.
Oh, yeah, he's too talented to just let him go over dollars and cents.
Mm-hmm.
And Keith Yandel was bought out by Florida.
Yeah, this one's interesting to me because obviously he's a liked guy in a locker room, right? We just saw his 1,000th game recently, and boy, you could just tell all of his teammates were so happy for him. They got him a sweet golf cart. They made these awesome shirts for him that everybody was wearing. He's got that Iron Man streak alive right now. So just the fact that Keith Yandel and the Florida Panthers story has been so tumultuous this whole time, it's weird to me because he just seems like one of those guys that everybody loves.
Yeah, and for me, I don't know if he's as good as Ryan Suter, but he's 2 years younger than Ryan Suter. He's a lefty just like Suter is. he's a potential option for Colorado that isn't Ryan Suter.
Yeah, I'd like Yandel over Suter for sure.
He had more points last season. He was playing, in Quenneville's system, so it's a unique experience. But, I mean, that's an option. Still, to me, Ian Cole is a free agent. He's 32. He can play either side. He's out there. Like, why Ryan Suter? I just don't understand.
I don't either. I think more of my thought, though, is thinking about what do you do if Landeskog does walk, though, right? I mean, I'm hearing a lot of talk about the New York Rangers are probably going to be the ones gunning after him, which is funny because you draw the comparison like Adrian Dater did with Joe Sakic, and that's exactly who offered him that almost destroyed the Avalanche like he referred to. So if Landeskog were to walk, obviously it stinks a little bit, but it also opens up some cap room for you to chase some other free agents, and there's one in particular, David Krejci. I know Boston is trying their hardest to sign him, just like we're doing here with Landeskog. But, there's a chance that they aren't able to do it. I think Krejci would be an awesome fit here.
He's 35, though.
Yeah, but he can score.
Well, we got a quick break, and then we'll do some rapid fire to take us out.
Let's do it.
On the Hockey Show here on Mile High Sports. And we're back on the Hockey Show. Ryan Bolden, JJ Jerez, Danny Bailey behind the glass. We've got some rapid fire mixed bag skate coming at you. JJ, yay or nay on Alex Tanguay being hired as an assistant coach with the Detroit Red Wings?
I'll say yay. Obviously, great to see a former Av get a job, and he gets the respect for being a former Av. So the rivalry is so dead that it doesn't even matter. Red Wings have been terrible for years, and I mean, flip the script, right? If a former Detroit great came to Colorado, would you really be that upset?
I don't know that I'd be that upset. I think it's great for Tanguay. He's a great guy. He was an assistant coach with Tim Army for the Iowa Wild. It's great to see him move up to the NHL level. Next up, Pierre McGuire, hired by the Senators.
I think everybody is just happy that we won't have to deal with him on television, right? I mean, bless the guy. I have no bad feelings towards him, but he can get a little bit obnoxious with the way he runs things. And I think what I'm more annoyed about is everybody complaining about him all the time. So, yeah, I think he deserves a shot within a team, see if he can prove himself in that role. He obviously knows a lot about a lot of players' history, so, put your money where your mouth is, Pierre.
He's already in hot water for basically attacking the analytics crowd already, has barely started his job. He's exactly the signing I would expect the Senators to make. The Home Run Derby. The Colorado Rockies hosted the MLB All-Star Game here.
Ryan, I was at the Home Run Derby, and I was sitting in the section where you can catch home runs, and I've been to so many sporting events in my life, from European soccer to NBA All-Star to NHL All-Star. This was the most fun sporting event I've ever been to in my entire life, and it made me remember the burgundy and white game of old, back when they used to still do it at Pepsi Center, and they would even have a skills competition going on, and just how much fun it was to just do the skills competition and just enjoy the fun with the fans and see who's the fastest skater on the Avalanche is. Sports needs to do more things like this. Shoot, I'm not even that big of a baseball fan. I'd be perfectly fine if baseball just switched to home run derbies for every competition, but I just love events like this, and the Home Run Derby, if you ever get the chance to go, honestly, the most fun thing I've ever done.
I know some NHL teams do like skills competitions during All-Star break or during, periods of breaks. I always wish the Avalanche did that because it would be really fun to see some skill on the team.
They used to. I remember. I think I remember seeing Steven Reinprecht be the fastest skater over Chris Drury, and I was so upset. Like, what? How does Chris Drury not win this? But yeah, I mean, that was so much fun back in when I was 12. I don't know why they got away from that. It's a cool product.
My last burgundy and white game featured some unique social media content created by yours truly, where I went down to the penalty box and I would do penalty box interviews with the players during the game. And there was even a fight. Josh Anderson got in a fight with a kid. I can't think of his name. He was from the Arcady Bathurst Titans in the QMJHL. But they got in a fight, and I was standing in the penalty box when it happened. So I spun around and filmed that too, and then talked to the guys in the interview. I know our friend of the show, John Mitchell. Mitchie was one of my interviews in the penalty box, but a cool opportunity you only have when the game doesn't matter.
Yeah, I remember that. That was cool that you were sitting there.
But that's going to do it for the Hockey Show. We're at the deadline. The NHL is about to be turned on its head here, and that'll do it for us.
Ryan, before you go, how'd you make a shirt with your own silhouette on it?
It's The magic of modern day technology allows you to do many things on a computer. That's it. We're out.
Thanks, everybody.